Hi there, it's Luke here from I Am.
And it's Andy from I Am.
And today we're going to demystify the compliance around what we call board games. Now, what I mean by this is board reporting and the governance that goes with this, as well, that goes with trustee boards, etc. My take on this is that the need for estates planning and estates reporting is becoming more and more heightened in the sector. There is now obviously the estates management standards, and you've got GEMS as well, good estates management for schools, and now obviously the strategy. You will need to obviously go and report items into the portal, the Department of Education portal, but actually on the ground reporting and trustee reporting, you kind of get the feel that there's different people pulling in different directions for what actually needs to be achieved here, because we get so many requests at I Am for different types of reporting. And when you actually scratch the surface and you actually understand what somebody's trying to sort of get at, it's not actually what they've initially asked for. Yeah. They're all kind of sort of treating reporting differently. And a good example of that, I suppose, is the sort of the guy on the ground, person on the ground, the site manager. He's going to have a very kind of detailed overview about what's going on the site. The next layer above from that is going to be like school business manager or ops manager or whatever, and they're going to have a bit more of a distilled version down of that same information. So still the same information, and then feeding up the chain again is a governor. And my take on this whole thing is that governors of schools, a lot of the schools, tend to be more operational. They want to see that same information of what the site manager and the school business manager has had. Whereas I think that the board, at board level, they need to be more strategic. And it's interesting because I think that the National Audit Office actually suggested this a couple of years ago to the Department of Education, that there is a gap in terms of where how governance needs to be stronger in terms of understanding estates management. And I think from my perspective, there's a lot of different like I said, pull factors for what information you need. But when you were running your school, and bearing in mind, obviously been many schools, but your requirements when you started on the ground versus when you were the estates director of said school must have had different reporting lines, and obviously you must have reported into governors as well.
Absolutely.
And how was the information sort of distilled down and fed up the chain?
So and I was also I also chaired the health and safety meeting as well, and in true Andy Ball style, keep it simple. So I was asked to produce the premises report for the governors. The governors would meet every 3 months. It would take 2 days for the bursar's PA to accumulate all these bits of paper, put them all into a pack, and she literally just went out the back off it, and that was it. You never saw her for 2 days. Right. And she produced reams and reams of paper for the governor's report. They had a week to read through, and the governor's report covered everything. So I was asked to build the premises version of it. I said, what information did they need to know? They need to know this, that, the next thing. That's fine. I turned up the next day with a single sheet of paper and a donut chart. And that was it. And the bursar said, what's this? That's the report. You can see the report. You can see how we're doing compliance. You can see how we're doing on the budget.
Report.
Everything was there. Yeah. Everything was there on one sheet of paper. Well, normally we have a 10-page report from premises alone.
But who reads it?
Nobody reads it.
Exactly.
Absolutely nobody reads it. So I did exactly the same for health and safety meetings. It was just basically bullet points. It was charts. This is how we're doing. And people would ask questions, and then obviously we could answer accordingly. The detailed data was always there in the background. Yeah. But people don't need to know.
If you wanted it.
If you wanted
to scrutinise it, maybe outside the meeting. But for a meeting that is arguably probably in the evening, where people have done a full day's work and they've sat down at 6 o'clock, item number 17 is estates generally it's the last meeting it's the last item in the agenda, and it's generally 8:45, and everybody's a bit, are they really going to sit there and read your 17-page?
No. And the item before the premises would be the staff Christmas party or something like that. It was always bottom of the list. Nobody had an interest. A lot of schools have dedicated premises governors now, which is good.
It is good.
And they tend to work closely with the site manager. So they've got a feel of things throughout the year. They don't just tie in with the site manager. We had a new chair of governors appointed. So bear in mind, the chair of governors is elected amongst the governors. It's not somebody that's brought in as the chair. So the chair of governors had sat on the governing body for 5 years or so. And because they'd taken over as chair of governors, they asked if I would take them around the estate and just show them bits and pieces. I said, yeah, that's fine. Half of the estate they'd never been to before at all as a governor. And you'd think that'd be part of the induction, really, wouldn't you?
Yeah, when you first get the job, you sort of go around,
go
know
around
what you're
with
managing.
Andy and have a look at the place. Yeah. And then the other thing, the main thing, was the fact they were surprised at the condition of some of the buildings within the estate. And it just struck me that if they didn't know that before, who else doesn't know what's going on? And a lot of governors' work, I feel, is all about the academic side of the school. Because back in the day, that's probably...
So it focuses on the education more so than what...
Yeah. Whereas now, obviously, you've got compliance, and now we're building onto that, and we've got estates management as well. So the role is changing for governors. It's changing a lot more. Back in the day, long time ago, it was just well-known celebrities from the village or the town would form the governorship. That would be it. Whereas now, I'm seeing a lot more active people. If you go to a
But I also think that the reporting side of being a governor has got a lot more technical, probably than what it's ever been before as well.
Yeah.
And because it's more technical, I think it's probably a little bit more boring as well. Whereas actually, I think there are probably the three key issues for me is, are we safe? Are we on plan? And have we got enough money to do what we're supposed to be doing? Yeah. They're the three sort of arguments that need to be answered in a board pack, in a governor's pack.
Absolutely.
For the estates.
Yeah.
Critical parts that just need answering, and that's all you need. If you want to go down and scratch a bit deeper, do that, because the technical stuff is on the ground with the site manager.
Yeah. And I think also one thing that we're finding working with as many schools as we do nowadays, when you produce a chart or you've got a system that shows compliance ratings or state management rating or whatever, and it's in the red or it's a low percentage, governors, again, not too long ago, would have looked at that and said, right, we're failing because you're only at 90% compliance or whatever. What I'm finding is happening now is governors are now actually analysing the data. So if there's tasks that are overdue, for example, instead of just dragging in the site manager and giving them a bit of a going over the table, they're now looking at it and saying, well, why is the task overdue? And when they look into it, they find that there isn't enough time in the day, or the caretaker's part-time, or the caretaker is off sick. And that then leads them on to then working out, well, if the caretaker's not here, how do we get that task covered?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that starts moving into the world of...
Well, you start asking more questions then, don't you?
Absolutely.
And ultimately, I think things come down to money. So if you've got a part-time caretaker, you might have to invest a bit more if things aren't being done.
Yeah.
And you can identify that through trends, because you might think, well, how does the maintenance spend compare this year versus last year? That's another probably question that people want to know on the board as well. You can probably get that information. Maybe certainly coming up with the estates management or the estates education estate strategy. Are we prepared for the annual return? I think that's probably another question that maybe boards need to ask now as well. I think that's probably quite a critical one. And are there any elements of compliance, which is what you probably just pointed on there, are there any elements of compliance that are drifting at this moment in time, and how can we spot those trends there? It's a lot more high level, I think.
Yeah,
it's a lot more high level and again, it has to be, for me, it has to be strategic. You have to have this sort of strategic kind of mindset around governance, not just the day-to-day operations. And I think that's what is really sort of important. Obviously, they need to be able to answer decisions at board level as well, don't you? So you need to have enough data there, but just make sure that obviously that you're not limited by obviously I suppose time, cost, etc. That sort of stuff. That's the major sort of stuff that people need to be discussing at a board. And I don't necessarily think that a good estates governor necessarily needs to understand buildings maybe as much as what you and I do. Do you think?
Yeah, no, they don't. They just need to recognise, going through those 3 values that you said about safety, for example, they just need to know that the school is in a safe place. They don't need to know that we have to do a call point check every week, or we've checked fire extinguishers or whatever. In fact, when you bring governors into the system, into the mix, it actually starts proving a little bit more difficult. So governors met every 3 months. To get approval for the governors, they would have to go to the governors' meeting. It would all get voted on. Right, we approve the extension to the swimming pool, whatever. That's 3 months.
Yeah.
If they decide on that meeting, well, hang on, let's do a little bit more research into this, that's now 6 months.
Yeah.
So it takes a long time to actually get things through. Conversely, it can actually work in your favour, because for the poor old site manager, sometimes not having all these projects thrown at them is actually a bit of a godsend. And I don't know if you remember, it was 15 years ago, we went to a small primary school to do some caretaker training in Somerset, just down the road from where I live. And if you remember, we bumped into a governor and they grabbed us by the arm and they took us to the swimming pool.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
So the swimming pool was going to get filled in at one point. The governors were like, well, hang on, this is a valuable asset. And they completely converted it, didn't they? It was absolutely immaculate. New boilers, everything.
That was the same one where, sorry, just probably going off topic here, but that was the same manager where the site manager had gone through 3 different head teachers and never been given a day's training.
Yeah,
but never 5 years. Another debate.
So they can be a hindrance or they can be a help. And it all depends really on, I think, the type of school as well. If you've got a primary school, for example, chances are you've got a younger breed of governors, because they're coming from parents, and the parents are obviously of younger children. When you start moving up, our governors at my last school they'd been around for quite a while. So their ideas of things, if you brought technology into the mix, some of them found that a little bit more difficult. So it's trying to keep up to date. And I know that's going to upset the apple cart a little bit there by saying that. But that's the truth of the matter. You need
young people with fresh ideas to come in.
That's what it is.
Using technology maybe to understand it a bit more. Again, that's not plugging technology again, but I'm just saying that actually scrutiny. So what we're saying is not necessarily. I'm thinking about the scrutiny part I just mentioned just now, but it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who is estates literate that needs to come in. It's a workflow type of person that actually goes in and gets things done to govern what somebody's doing based on the reporting being given to them. So as long as you get the reporting part right, one of the important parts is that you don't have risk to normalise because of lack of scrutiny. So that person does need to have an element of understanding to a degree of the estate, but essentially they need a reporting rhythm that can offer sort of predictable evidence-based data that can determine how best to run that estate. And I think that's probably the important thing, isn't it? That's probably the important takeaway, is that, again, go back to governors don't necessarily need to be people that understand buildings. They just need to be able to clearly report what's going on in them to be able to govern.
Yeah. And do you feel that maybe some governors feel that the position that they're in, they kind of think, well, everyone will expect me to know all these sort of things. So
there is an expectation to get the role, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
To get when you apply for the job, if you're a building surveyor, with 2 or 3 spare hours a week, and you're willing to go in and be a governor, versus somebody who might be a part-time ops manager from somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather go for the part-time ops manager.
Yeah.
Because they can afford more time. Time's the important part.
Absolutely.
Establish your own sort of way of doing things. Yes, it's important that you got somebody, or it could be important that you got somebody skilled and that understands buildings a lot more widely than what maybe a layman might do. But ultimately, I think it's time to establish that all the rules and regulations are there in terms of understanding what you need to do, from the Good Estates Management for Schools Guide, Academy Trust handbook's quite strong in terms of telling people what they need to obviously follow. That information's there. You've got the tiering system in the school estates management standards now, and now the government are going to start doing annual reporting and all the other stuff that goes with that as well. I just think that there's a lot of information there. I'd probably rather have somebody with time committed to the school rather than somebody that is short of time but probably more qualified, more understandable of that role at this stage of where we're at with estates.
Yeah, because everything's changing now, isn't it? I mean, we've gone.
It's a landscape is changing very quickly.
We first got together professionally. It was like education. Then all of a sudden it was education compliance because schools were moving away from the local authority. And now estates management, because people realise that the 200-year-old village school actually probably isn't up to the mark for the 21st century. So things evolve, things change, and everyone needs to keep up with that sort of trend. Central to that will be the governors. And I do see them changing over the years. I've seen quite a big change in the sort of governor status. It's changed a hell of a lot over the years, which is good. It's all positive.
I agree, yeah, I agree. Okie dokie, right. Thanks very much for that. I mean, there's a lot to take away there, and I feel a lot more informed again. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye all.
Bye.